is a show that focuses on the person behind the brony. I'm your host, Osaka Jack. Please sit back and relax as we talk to this week's guest brony. Hello everyone, this is Osaka Jack with Into the Spotlight on Everfree Network. Today with me I have an artist whose work you're probably familiar with at some points, Muffinshire. Hello.
Hello, thank you for having me on.
Oh, thanks for being on. Now, you mentioned it before we started recording, but my pronunciation is one of two correct pronunciations.
That's right. You can pronounce it Muffinshire or Muffinshire.
Sheer. Okay.
Muffinshire. That's usually, how place names would be pronounced in the UK, where I'm from. You can't tell by my accent. Lancashire.
You're not from Alabama? Oh, man.
No. But you could also pronounce it Muffinshire, as in a Shire horse. So we've got a bit of a horse pun tucked away in my handle there.
I have to admit, it's probably just because it's the book that I'm reading right now, but my first thought was hobbits.
Yes. Well, of course, J.R.R. Tolkien was an English writer, based a lot of the Shire on parts of England.
Yeah. Yeah, so, I heard Muffinshire, I just thought, Mr. Frodo Muffin and Samwise Muffin. I can deal with this, yes.
My feet aren't that hairy, though.
Well, now you need to take this little muffin, and you need to just draw two little stick feet with big old bunches of hair on them.
Yes.
And this will be a Shire Muffinshire. The idea of a hairy muffin is so disgusting. I can't.
Oh, no. Oh, just...
Moving on. Well, if anybody is not familiar with your work, can you describe a little bit what do you do?
Well, what I'm probably best known for is writing and drawing the ongoing comic strip, Twilight's First Day, which is following young Twilight Sparkle on her first day at Celestia's School for Gifted Unicorns.
Right.
I do a little bit of other art, but this is the one thing that sort of really got popular. And I've been doing that since about October 2012.
Okay, so approaching 6 months then? Or actually...
approaching...
No. Much sooner.
A year and a quarter now, just over.
Oh, right, yeah, it's 2014. I can do math. Okay.
Yes, yeah. Still not used to it. I'm still writing 13 on my dates as my dates on official documents and things like that.
Yeah.
It takes forever to get used to the date change.
Yes. Yeah. Next year should be easy.
Yes.
Next year should be easy just because that's the year that Back to the Future 2 is set in. So.
Oh, of course, yeah. So we've got what less than 11 months now. Well, just over 11 months to invent hoverboards and holographic signs and flying cars.
Well, technically it was November. Oh, I can't remember exact day. 23rd. So.
So we got a little bit longer to get those things down.
We got about 22 months. But though somebody brought it up on Twitter, and I think it's an excellent point. They said, "Have you seen how poorly people do with two-dimensional driving? Do you really want them to have the third dimension?"
Yeah, I think if we're ever going to have flying cars, it's going to have to be computers in control and not us.
Yeah, probably. And Amazon is doing the way with the drone shipping. Woohoo!
Oh, yes.
Soon it'll just be drone transport. I need transport from my house here to this location. Beep.
If only.
That's actually... No, couldn't be done. No. Not with today's technology. So yes, Twilight's First Day is definitely one of the more prevalent things that people notice.
Yes.
It seems to be looks like averaging about once a month, right?
Thereabouts, yeah. I had a break recently from it for about just under 3 months. Break from it while I was working on another project. We'll probably get onto that a bit later, although it's not strictly pony related.
Wow.
Doesn't
have to be.
Up until then, I've been putting them out about every 3 weeks.
Okay, all right. I'm curious, how much of the story do you have? I mean, do you have a specific ending in mind, or?
Oh yes, yeah.
Okay.
Really, when I started it, I wasn't sure sort of what I wanted to do. I knew I wanted to do some comics,
Right.
so I was sort of batting around different ideas, and sort of dithering back and forth between whether to do just sort of standalone joke-based strips or whether to do something with an ongoing story.
Sure, sure.
And I sort of played with some different ideas. I thought, maybe a comic about the flower trio, Lily, Rose, and Daisy living together, and sort of what they get up to. That'd be sort of quite good for very sort of standalone joke-based
Yeah,
humor.
yeah, I can see that.
I briefly considered doing something about Mayor Mare.
Okay.
At the time, I was rewatching all the old episodes of Yes Minister and Yes Prime Minister,
Okay.
which is a sitcom on British TV in the 1980s.
Mm-hmm.
It's a very witty political satire
Right.
about a minister, a government minister who he wins the election. Fantastic, he gets to be an MP, and it's basically about his attempts to try and make changes that he wants, but he's not terribly good at his job, and he's constantly stymied by his secretary, uh,
Okay.
who always tries to keep things the way they are.
Sure, sure.
Very, very witty show, and I thought, could we do something like that with Mayor Mare? And while I could see the
I have to
potential,
applaud you doing that, your idea, Mare rather than Celestia.
mm,
I tend to not enjoy the comics where it tries to portray her as incompetent. No, she knows what she's doing. She's been around quite a while.
yeah. But I sort of saw the potential there, but then I realised I don't really know politics well enough to make a lot of jokes about it. And
Sure.
to be honest, if once you start getting into politics, you're going to be rubbing some people up the wrong way.
Very true. Very true.
Even if you try and stay away from very divisive topics,
Right.
you're still going to attract some people who'll disagree with you and say, oh, blah blah blah, I don't think
Yeah.
you're right about this. So that sort of fell by the wayside.
And honestly, if that's the exact tone and words that they used, then there wouldn't be any problem. But we know that's not the tone
if
and
only,
words they would
it
use.
gets a bit more incendiary than that. But,
Yes.
but there we go.
Yeah. Okay.
So
So is that
anyway, this was sort of coming on the heels of Equestria Daily's artist training grounds
okay?
back in August 2012. So
Right.
this was before I'd started Twilight's first day.
Mm-hmm.
I'd just sort of got back into doing cartoon art. I mean, I've been dabbling in it for many years now. Sort of even when I did my art GCSE, that's at the end of I suppose that sort of lines up with high school in the United States. You do GCSEs at the age of about 15 or 16. So
Okay.
that's sort of end of the is that the junior year in high school? I can never keep track of the system.
When you graduate American high schools, you're 18. So
Yes.
about
So
that.
that'll be the equivalent of what's called the sixth form.
Okay.
Over here. Anyway, so I did art at GCSE, and I think you have to submit about it's somewhere in the region of 10 original pieces, and 3 of the pieces that I did were cartoon art. So I did a sort of a comic book as one of them. I did a big sort of big poster-sized painting of a giant sort of Gundam-style robot as another.
Nice.
So yeah, I've been doing cartoon style illustration for many years, and as is the way, real life tends to get in the way. You get a job, you end up having to do that, and the old hobbies fall by the wayside. But,
Sure. It sounds crass, but no, it's true. You do what you got to do so you can do what you want to do.
Exactly. So when I started getting interested in My Little Pony, I again started to get back into cartoon art, into this drawing. And I just sort of dabbled with a few pieces, a bit of traditional stuff, just pen and paper and a coloured pencil.
Sure.
And then I thought, well, I'm familiar with using computers. I know Photoshop pretty well. So I borrowed a graphics tablet off someone just to try it out. Drew a couple of sort of test pieces with it, and I thought, yeah, this is quite good. I'll buy myself, a proper graphics tablet, a really big sort of professional one. So yeah, went onto eBay, got myself a second-hand graphics tablet, and just started dabbling a bit more in pony art, pony illustration.
Oh, nice.
And a few weeks later, Equestria Daily started their artist training grounds.
Right.
So that's where they do. You're given a prompt at the start of each day, and you have 24 hours to draw and submit a piece of pony-related art based on the prompt they give you.
Right.
And I thought, oh, that's great. Okay, I'll dip in and out. I'll just do a few days when I feel like it, and I think when I have a good idea for the prompt. Started on day 1 and did every single day right through to day 30. Ended up with 32 pieces. I did a couple of days. I did 2 rather than 1.
Wow.
So yeah, it became something of a bit of a fascination.
Sure.
And it was quite fun to go through and to try different things, to do different styles, to try and look for where my shortcomings were and work to correct that.
Right, right.
So yeah, had a lot of fun with that. And over the course of the artist training ground, over the month of August, there were a couple of pieces I did that gained a really big response in comparison to the other ones. And one of those I think was on day 10. Okay. Which was, I think the prompt was draw a pony making a decision. Okay. And the picture that I drew was...
the pinky one.
No.
Oh.
I think that was draw a pony facing conflict. That was an earlier one. No, the one I'm referring to was, this was a picture of young Twilight, filly Twilight, being taken to the public library with her parents. And she's got this stack of books with her. And she's at the checkout desk, and the caption under it is, "You mean I could only take out 5 books at once," or something like that. So poor little Twilight's, picked out, a big stack of a dozen or more books. She can only take 5, and that one gained quite a response, a lot more comments, a lot more favourites compared to what I've been doing before. I think, by this point, some of the pieces I were doing were not only turning up on Equestria Daily's artist training ground gallery, but also turning up on their Draw Friend galleries too. Okay. I think people were submitting them. This wasn't me posting them in. Other people had obviously seen them and submitted them on my behalf.
Oh, nice.
Anyway, so that was sort of the first one that got a big response, and then a few days later, I decided to do a comic, a very short comic page for that day's prompt. The prompt, I think, was draw a curious pony. It was something like that. Let me just call up my gallery here.
Inquisitive pony?
Inquisitive pony, that was it, yeah. And that was, I just did a little sort of 8 or 9 panel comic of filly Twilight again, finding Celestia in her quarters sort of late at night, sad about Luna still being stuck on the moon at that point, trapped.
I see. Though I would mention even at this point, Twilight is trying on the footwear.
Oh, yes. I had all sorts of ideas for what I would have Twilight doing and looking at in the room. Meeting the part of the inquisitive pony part of the prompt. But, in fact, I think this one was even on a work day. So I had literally, 4 or 5 hours in the evening to do this comic. I thought I've really got to rush this through. Didn't have time to colour it. Just did some basic grayscale toning on it,
Right.
just to set the mood. And that was all I could manage in that sort of shorter a span of time.
Well, honestly, for me, I think the non-color aspect of it, you're correct. It does match the mood, but also it brings to mind the old-time newspaper comics that I used to read.
Mm.
Which,
Yes.
granted, in my newspaper now, there are only 3 panels because they want to crush them down. But still, the feel is there.
Mm. So yes, again, that got quite a big response, and this sort of got me to thinking. At least when I came to think about starting a comic, that would be an interesting area to explore, to look at the relationship between Twilight Sparkle and Princess Celestia, to see how it developed.
Sure.
In those early days.
Right.
The Twilight we see on the show now pretty much sort of idolized Celestia.
Yeah.
But I thought it would be interesting to see that relationship develop.
Okay.
And there was a lot of potential for story there.
Yes.
And all sorts of interesting things I could do with the comic based on that premise.
Absolutely.
So I ended up drawing that first part of it, where young Twilight wakes her parents in the wee small hours of the morning, excited about going to school.
Yeah.
And I thought, oh well, I'll just see how people like it, and it just exploded. Absolutely, I don't quite know. I could not possibly have predicted the response to that. Up until then, I probably had a couple of hundred followers on DeviantArt, and I thought, wow, I'm doing really well here. And then Twilight's First Day Part 1 came out, and it just went absolutely crazy. It was reblogged by the Ask the Crusaders Tumblr. So that's a really popular
Yes.
Tumblr, and loads of people got to see it that way. It ended up on the front pages of I think Reddit and Funny Junk.
Okay.
And I mean the front pages, not just the front page of the pony sections, the actual front page of the website as a whole.
Nice.
Again, these were all just other people spreading them around. I hadn't really sort of gone to any great efforts to promote it. I was just sort of doing it as a fun thing, a fun hobby.
Sure.
And if people saw it and liked it, so much the better. So naturally, by this point, I thought I've got to continue this story now. I've got people's attention. So I sat down and I planned out where I was going to take this story. I started out just with a vague idea that we could have Twilight and Shining Armor both going away to their respective schools on the same day. So Twilight going off to magic school, Shining Armor going off to the cadets, the Royal Guard cadets. And I thought there's plenty of potential for a story there.
Oh, yes.
Didn't really have much of a plan of where to take that. So after the first part just sort of exploded like that, I sat down and planned out what I was going to do with the story, and where I was going to take it, sort of the key moments that I wanted to appear in the story. So I've now got pages and pages of notes, which are now continuing to grow as I add to the story. So I've got a rough idea of, well, in fact, a fairly clear idea, I should say, of where the overall story is going, of sort of the major story points that I want to hit. And now I'm just sort of joining the dots as I go. But as I go, I'm introducing more and more elements that I wouldn't have thought of at the start.
Yeah.
Uh, I'll give you a good example. The section where the part of the story where Twilight accidentally boards the airship.
Yes.
And encounters Thunderhead, the Pegasus with the broken wing.
Right.
Now, originally I wanted her to meet sort of a beat-up veteran, so that later on she would remember that and come to realize that, her brother's gone into what's quite a dangerous profession, that he's potentially at risk of injury or worse.
Sure.
So, I just wanted her to meet this guy and be a little bit scared by him. And that would sort of sow the seed for her later conflict.
Right.
But as I sort of plotted out the strips where he appears, I thought, I want to see a bit more of this guy. I think he's probably got a bit of an interesting backstory. So that whole section with the story of him protecting Princess Celestia from a griffin attack.
Right.
That,
we
that
should
wasn't
mention real fast, it was a rogue griffin. That's
a
specifically
rogue
stated.
griffin,
I mean,
I'd say, yes.
we're not saying there's ever been war between the griffins and the ponies. Just it was a rogue griffin.
Yes, there is a whole story behind all this. I'm not going to give too much away, but in the most recent part, we meet there's a Griffin staff member at the school, and
yes.
her story crosses over with Thunderhead's at some point. So I won't say much more.
I want to guess, but I'm not going to because I hate spoilers, and that would just betray everything that I know about it. But ooh, yay!
So yeah, so by planning ahead like this, I'm able to drop in things that I know are not going to be developed for another 10 or 20 or even 30 parts down the line.
Right.
But these threads are laid in, and hopefully, if I'm able to carry on working on it, I hope to tie them up and make a sort of cohesive story out of it all. So,
do you have an estimate over how many panels or how many comics it'll be?
At a rough guess at the moment, I'd say it's probably going to run to somewhere in the region of 60 parts.
60, okay. All right.
Yeah, quite a lot.
So we're about a third of the way in, or approaching a third.
At a guess, yeah.
Okay.
It may end up being stretched out even further as as new ideas occur and as I want to explore new avenues of the story and so on.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, 60 parts is roughly what it would take to tell at least the bare bones of the story that I've got planned out.
It is so much nicer reading a comic that has an ending planned than someone who's just making it up as they go along. And all props to people who make comics, but yeah, we can tell. People who pay attention can tell when there's no ending in mind. But it's nice that there is a point that you're meandering towards. That's good. That's good.
Yes. Yeah.
Have there been any responses to the comic that have just surprised you? Beyond the just massive amount of people.
Just the general response to it, as I say, is really sort of came out of left field and really surprised me. I can't think of any particular response specifically to the comic.
Okay.
But I think what it has done is opened up other avenues, other opportunities.
Sure.
One of the interesting things that sort of came out of this was a charity comic that I did, and this was just after I'd done the second part of Twilight's first day.
Right.
And I was contacted by someone on DeviantArt who was interested who was actually doing a fundraiser for a friend of his who suffers from something called Erland syndrome.
Okay.
It's a visual perceptual disorder. It's somewhat related to dyslexia. It's where basically the person has difficulty with reading. I think it's something to do with when there's very high contrast something, it sort of overloads their vision, and they have to have special glasses and so on to help alleviate this. Now this chap was raising money for tests and for these special glasses for his friend. Was running a fundraiser on, I think it was on Indiegogo.
Okay.
And both of them are into My Little Pony, of course, and they wondered if the fandom would want to help. So he, as I say, he contacted me on DeviantArt, and asked me if I'd be interested in just doing a short comic, just to sort of raise awareness, and then they put a donation link on the comic.
Sure.
Now his suggestion was to have something like I don't know, Rainbow Dash reading and then explaining about it or something. I said, no, what I want to do is and no, he obviously he said I'm wide open to suggestions.
Good, that's a good plan when you're talking to
I
artists.
didn't just sort of say no, I'm not going to do that. He said, if you can think of anything better, you do it. And I thought, well, Final Scratch. She's already a character in the show. She already wears tinted glasses.
Very true.
And I'm kind of a fan of in comics where the artist uses just the images to tell the story.
Yes.
You see this sometimes in webcomics where people will just flood it with a wall of text.
Yeah.
It's almost a fanfic with illustrations.
Yeah.
And I tried to sort of pull away from that and say, not just in this charity comic, but in Twilight's First Day and in all my other things that I do, to try and tell as much as you can of the story, just using the visuals, just using the expressions on the characters' faces, just using the composition of the panels and so on. Sorry, I came up with this idea of Octavia and Vinyl Scratch as roommates in college, and just showing a little act of kindness from one of them helping the other.
Yeah.
That ideally suited a charity drive like that. And again, massive response to that. I was hoping, maybe we'd get them another $50 or $100, maybe if we were lucky. And I think within about 2 days of the comic coming out, they raised, I think it was about $270, something like that.
Wow.
And reached the target, and well, that was fantastic.
That's amazing.
So,
That's wonderful.
So I've carried on with doing things largely for charity. Occasionally I will get people who will approach me and say, "Do you do commissions?" And so generally I'll say, "Okay, but the money goes to charity, not to me."
Right.
So just in the months following, this would have been back in November 2012. I was doing the Movember thing, where you're sponsored to grow a moustache.
Yes.
And I thought, ideal. I can tie that in. I can offer charity commissions. I'll say you donate, $10, $15, $20 or whatever to Movember, and I'll do a commission for you. So I did a few of those. And most recently,
I have to mention real fast the disturbingly cute Cutie Mark Crusaders with mustaches.
Yes, that was such an appropriate commission for Movember. I didn't set out and say, "Oh, it must be mustache related."
Right.
That's too restrictive. But someone said, "Oh, I want to see the Cutie Mark Crusaders growing mustaches," and I thought, "That's perfect."
It's disturbingly cute.
It worked out very well.
Yes, it did.
So that's sort of my most recent bit of charity artwork was a canvas painting which was auctioned at Buck, which is the UK pony convention,
Sure,
which was held back in the summer of 2013, and they have a huge charity auction there. All sorts of things being auctioned, for everything from merchandise to full size, character suits and everything, all sorts of things on there. And I think they raised around about £8,000
That's amazing.
for cardiac charity.
Oh, nice.
So yeah, and I think it was £200 of that was my contribution.
Ah.
So yes, and I'm still in contact with the person who bought it at auction, and he says he's very, very happy with the painting.
Yeah, and this is not just something you did this is actual painted. I mean,
that's right. Yes,
on a fabric. Okay.
Yeah, on canvas, on an actual canvas painted with acrylics. Mm-hmm. This is something I actually started up in around about the same time I was starting to get into My Little Pony and so on.
Right.
My sister actually asked me if I'd be interested in doing a mural for the wall of my niece and nephew's playroom.
Okay.
And I said, sure, no problem. And then she changed her mind. She said, could you do it on a canvas instead? And that way it can be moved around. It can be moved into their bedrooms or whatever if, as they grow up or,
sure.
As circumstances change.
Right.
And so I did this big painting of animals. It was sort of jungle animals, elephants, tigers, that sort of thing.
Right.
On a great big canvas, a big sort of 3 foot by 3 foot canvas.
Wow. Okay.
And so that's sort of where I started to get back into doing canvas painting,
Sure.
doing traditional art again.
Huh.
Again, something I hadn't really done in many years.
Mm-hmm.
And I've carried on doing these canvas paintings as birthday presents for my nieces, plural now, as their numbers have grown. And so I thought, I might as well do my little bit for Buck for the charity auction, and did that canvas painting called Tea Time Magic Practice. And well, there we go. Earned a little bit of extra money for charity there.
Yeah, that's great. That's wonderful. Huh.
Mm.
And in all honesty, there is nothing more apropos for a Buck piece than Tea Time.
Well, that was my thinking. Yeah.
One of the other things close to that in the DeviantArt, you're good at just making people go awe.
That seems to be the response. Always seems to end up in the comments. Lots of people complaining that I'm giving them heart attacks and so on.
Well, I suppose it's apropos. Then you're helping to donate towards the cardiac risk in the young.
Yes, yeah.
But no, just for me, Big Mac as worried as possible because Smarty Pants has a rip.
That was fun. That was just me on an art table at Buck,
Mm-hmm.
just drawing away and chatting with some fellow fans, and I just sort of came up with that as we were talking.
It's adorable, but it's definitely a piece. And okay, I admit this fully. I liked the Nightmare Night with Philly Twilight. Can we play the Spider Toss next? I did not recognize that in the background there are two ponies dressed up.
Yes, this fooled a lot of people. There's a lot of comments on DeviantArt and other places where people have said, "Gosh, Princess Celestia looks very butch."
No, I got it now because I zoomed in like, oh, look at that. That cutie mark doesn't belong to Celestia. Does belong to another white pony though.
That seems to be the part that everyone homes in on. They certainly generated the most response anyway.
I liked it at first, but then I saw that, and yeah, and with the tri-colored mane, pinkish pony directly across from Celestia, in quotes, doing the smiling and, yay, we look good together. Sure. So I'm assuming that coming up in the next 44 some odd Twilight's first days, there's going to be a lot of awe moments.
Well, yes, I'm hoping to keep up the cuteness factor
Yay!
comics as we go. As the story progresses, I'm hopefully getting Twilight into little situations where she's she's going to be herself and usual do all sorts of cute things.
Of course, yes.
And of course, some of the things that I've got going on, I'm drawing inspiration from real life with these things, with things that really happened either to me in school or to people I know, to my brother or sister, and of course now my niece and nephew, my eldest niece and nephew are in school, so I get the stories of what they get up to as well. So there's a rich seam of inspiration there.
Oh yes.
For things that are going on. Well, let me give you an example.
If I had to guess, I would say the two students trying to convince her that boarding school students were strapped to a board at night.
Surprisingly, no. That's just an invention of my own.
Okay, all right.
The one most obvious part that I think that comes from a real life incident that happened to myself is in part 12, where Twilight, she's just seen her brother off to school, for the first time, and she's sitting in the back of the taxi there, and she looks at Smarty Pants and says, well, "What are we going to do now, Smarty Pants?" And I'm told, because I don't remember this myself,
right?
I'm told that those are more or less the words that I said when I saw my older sister off to school for the very first time. I'd only been about 3 at the time. My mum and I and my older sister all been taken off to school for the first time. I'd seen her off, and then we're going to leave, and I turn to my mum and say, "What am I going to do now?" Been my little playmate for all these years, and she was off at school, and I was still at home. I was too young for school at that point.
Sure.
So that's based on a real life incident, and there are going to be more of those as the story progresses.
Wow, I'm guessing you also fought a griffin at some point. A rogue griffin. Sorry.
Oh, I don't like to talk about that.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Yeah, sorry. England doesn't like to talk about your griffin problem. I'm sorry.
Yeah, it's a bit of a hot button issue.
Yeah. Just, I don't care if you guys have a griffin problem. Just keep the hippogriffs away. I mean, that's taking it too far, guys. Gone another level. Okay, I'm sorry. Well, there is another thing that you haven't done for a while, but we did touch on it a little bit. Are the paper crafts?
Yes, yeah. I guess in the early days of when I started getting involved in the fandom, I was still sort of trying to find my niche, as it were. So papercraft was one of the things I'd sort of dabbled vaguely in the past. Really, just making other people's kits and kits that other people had designed.
Sure.
And I thought, well, I could have a go at doing a pony papercraft kit. And I think certainly at the time there was no sign of a Nightmare Moon toy, no actual merchandise with Nightmare Moon on. Of course, right. That's how different.
Yeah.
So I started out doing this Nightmare Moon papercraft. Just sort of constructed it in 3D in a 3D package in Maya. Exported it into Papercraft Designer, and just sort of play with it from there. And well, it's a heck of a learning curve. Making your first Papercraft kit, I think I went through about 4 or 5 different prototypes.
Oh, wow.
All sorts of various different experiments to try and get it to work, and I still don't think it was quite right, so I revised it when I came to do later papercraft ones. I went on and did Princess Celestia's
Yes.
as a paper craft model, and that revised it slightly, and then later still Chrysalis. Again, at the time there were no sign of any Chrysalis toys, and now there is there's one or two official.
Yeah, I don't know. I haven't been
Full-size
too.
one, which is a kind of lazy
Yeah,
respray of the Nightmare Moon one,
yeah.
and then there's the blind bag size ones, which are nicer.
Yes, that's true. And that's honestly, in my mind, sad that the blind bag ones are nicer than the larger ones. It should be reversed.
Yes,
But
still we have to work with what we've got.
very true. Very true.
So yes, as I say, at the time I was sort of dabbling in all sorts of different things to do with the fandom, and tried this paper craft out, and there was quite a good response to it. But
Sure.
I find myself sort of falling more into the drawing side
Oh,
of things.
absolutely. I'm just curious with the papercraft, if somebody had never made a papercraft thing before, would it be possible to do this?
I think so, yes.
Okay.
I've seen there are other papercraft kits out there now, and they're they're way in advance of what I managed to come up with. Certainly a lot more show accurate.
Well, I'm sorry, I'm
but
totally in the dark. I've never tried a papercraft one, but
mm,
do I need glue or tape or?
yes, glue. Glue is the way to go.
Okay.
I tried to keep the kit, as straightforward as possible, so that
Okay.
someone who's not terribly, who hasn't done papercraft before, who's not terribly familiar with how it all works,
Right.
could at least attempt it. And certainly there have been plenty of people who on DeviantArt have contacted me and said, "Look, I've done this version of your kit, or I've adapted it into another character."
Oh, nice.
So that's always nice to see. And I think one user did an enormous scale one that sort of stands about 3 feet
Oh my goodness.
from floor to head.
Wow.
So it's people have taken these patterns and done their own thing with them.
That's
Um,
impressive.
yeah, and as I say, there are more show accurate ones out there, but they are.
Right.
I've looked at them myself, and they are vastly more complicated.
Right. Right.
So not really the sort of thing a beginner should take on.
Okay. Gotcha.
A lot of them are based, I think, on the Gmod models that are out there. Basically, they've taken the Gmod
Right. Okay.
models and adapted them into papercraft.
I see.
So they're very show accurate. They look fantastic when they're done, but you have got to have some serious patience to put that together.
And I would assume very dexterous hands.
Indeed.
Okay, maybe we'll start with something simple, and then work our way up.
Well, speaking of doing something very simple, I think the thing that got the project that got them more attention, I think, than the papercraft is the Sonic Rainboom mobile that I did, and that's something someone can do in an afternoon.
Yeah, that's true.
And a lot of people, have sent me pictures of the ones that they've completed. So that's always fun to see.
That looks, it looks really good, but I think I probably won't do it just because there will. If I put this up in my school, people who don't know the reference, which would be most of them, might think that it's 3 falling ponies and not understand what's happening. And
yes, taken out of context, it does look rather odd.
Yeah, possibly for my home, but yeah, just not for the school, definitely. Well, another one that you seem to still, for the most part, keep up with is the Ask Pun Pony.
Yes, I haven't done any contribution to that in a while, just simply because Twilight's First Day has taken off so much.
Sure.
But again, this was someone who approached me. It's actually the chap who runs the Ask Pun project. Asked me if I wanted to be on the artist roster for that Tumblr.
Right.
I said, "Yep, no problem." It's very relaxed. It's very informal. You're not sort of obliged to produce work for it.
Right.
When you're on the artist roster, you're just given access to a list of scripts for the comic, which is submitted by other people.
Sure.
And you just put your name next to a script that you want to do, and as long as you produce it within a reasonable time, they're quite happy to let people work at their own pace. It's very low pressure.
Right.
So I may go back to that. I know I haven't done it in quite a few months, probably more than a year now. Thinking, but yes, that was a fun little aside.
Well, one that you did for them is the book one.
Yes, no, that was the I think that was the first one I actually did.
Okay.
It came out later because of there's quite a long lead time.
Sure.
I'm just trying to remember. No, I think this was actually the second one I did for them.
Okay. All right.
But the third one to come out, I'm to cast my mind back now to when it was.
Okay. It's okay.
Like I say, there's quite a long lead time on it. Often, you'll submit a finished strip and then it won't show up on the Tumblr for 3 months.
Sure.
But that's just the way it goes. They've got a great long queue of completed strips, so
Good.
they're going to keep that running for plenty of time.
Good.
But as soon as I saw that particular strip, that particular script in the list of comics to be produced, I knew I had to do that one.
Right.
I rather liked the short little poem and the imagery that you could have with it.
Yep. And I think to date it is the only pony thing that I have seen that centers on books and does not have Twilight in it.
That's true. Everything always seems to boil down to Twilight and books.
Mm-hmm. Which is understandable. She loves books, sleeps in the library. Sure, we're going to see a lot of book stuff. Understandable.
Yeah.
But I'm sure other ponies like it at some point, too.
Yeah, we do see a bit of Rainbow Dash after...
That's true.
After Read It and Weep.
Yeah. Well, a question that I ask in each of my interviews, in all of My Little Pony, what would you say is the one line or one scene that defines you as a brony?
Wow, defines me.
Or speaks out to you?
That's a good question.
To date, out of 65 interviews, only one has not been stumped by the question, and to be honest, they were preparing the answer a few weeks ahead of time. So.
Right. I'm just trying to think now.
Usually just your first instinct when I say the question is usually the best answer.
I think the scene that I like the most, and that I think speaks to me the most, and certainly says the most about what I like about the show, is the scene with Rarity in Sisterhood Social.
Okay.
Where she realizes what she's done, how she's driven Sweetie Belle away. The famous "What have I done?" scene.
Right.
Because that's sort of the culmination of the episode, of the emotional sort of message of the episode.
Sure.
I always find sort of among my list of favorite episodes are the ones that have a very strong emotional story to them about the interplay between characters. So we see that a lot in Green Isn't Your Colour, where we've got Rarity and Fluttershy, trying to make sure that they're not hurting one another's feelings but concealing their own. That's always very very enjoyable to watch. We see it in Sisterhood Social, as I mentioned, where we've got Rarity and Sweetie Belle's expectations of each other, sort of bumping up against one another and causing conflict.
And anyone who has siblings knows how common that is.
I've already mentioned my older sister, and I've got a younger brother as well. So, that sort of thing in the show, when it comes up in the show, I think sort of speaks to me.
I'm not sure if you have seen the more recent one with the Apple.
Pinky Apple Pie, yes.
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 I loved
I would
the.
say closely tied for my favourite episode of season 4, alongside the Cutie Mark Crusaders.
Yes, Flight to the Finish.
Flight to the Finish, that's it. Again, because of the interplay between the characters.
Yeah, very true.
Mm.
I think Flight to the Finish, one of the stronger points in that is it's showing that these characters are growing and developing. And
yes.
It frustrates the quote-unquote villains. We've already called them blank flank. What else can we do?
Yeah, it's always nice to see when the writers are able to show this sort of character development. It doesn't happen all the time, but when it does, it's usually gold.
Yes. Or one of my favorites is the non-character developed into a character, Harry the Bear.
Oh yes.
I absolutely love the fact that something that they made up to distract Pinkie Pie. We're gonna watch for Harry. He's a bear. It's not so much a house as a whole, but it's a house to him, and he's at the beach.
Collecting seashells or playing beach volleyball.
Playing seashells, collecting volleyballs. Yes. And then we see Harry.
Yes. That's such an unusual and strange little thing for the show to do, but
Yes.
That's one of the things I love about it. Is that they'll take silly little ideas that pop up in earlier episodes and then just develop them. I mean, number one example, Derpy Hooves.
Yes.
They took an animation error from episode 1 and turned her into a character.
Yeah.
with a certain amount of input from the fandom, of course.
Of course, yeah, but for the most part, it's just roll with it. Let's go. I know that I still want to call him Snowflake, but I suppose the official name is Bulk Biceps now.
Bulk Biceps. Wasn't he called Snowflake in one of the chapter books?
I believe so.
Yeah, so we've sort of got this naming.
I have heard the theory that, well, I won't mention it right now, but I know that the person who wrote the original episode that he appeared in, the Hurricane Fluttershy, it was not written as a character.
No.
They just put it as, I think it was Pony Walla. So, just like all of them. Yeah!
Yeah, that's the sort of thing that the storyboarders put in.
Yeah, storyboarders just say, you know what? We're going to make this one character who it's their thing to say, yeah. We'll do it in a Ren and Stimpy John K style. Boom.
Yeah.
So from what was a crowd cheer, we now have a character.
Exactly.
Well, today we have been speaking with Muffinshire, or Muffinshire, or Cupcake Hobbit Hole.
Oh, please don't call me that.
Okay, I won't. Thank you so much for coming by and speaking with us today.
Thank you for having me.
Everybody be sure to check him out on DeviantArt, newly acquired Twitter, and the Ask Pun Tumblr that he's part of. Any other social media that you're on?
Not really, no. I tend to stick to DeviantArt and more recently Twitter. It's really, it's the other fans that that spread it around. So to them, I just have to say thank you to people for noticing my work and for spreading it around. I don't think Twilight's first day would have taken off as a series the way it has if it hadn't been for other people passing it around.
Well, we're very glad it has. And I can imagine several years down the line, Twilight's second day, perhaps?
Well, that's the funny thing. The story, the one thing I regret about it is the title.
Okay.
Because the story, as I've got it planned out, will take place over several weeks of her first few days of school. Okay. So what I may have to do is conclude the first day and then relaunch the strip, as it were, as Twilight's first term, Twilight's first semester. I have to come up with a better title than that, but essentially just continue it with a more appropriate title.
Syndrome. But yes, thank you so much for coming by.
Thank you.
Everybody, this has been Osaka Jack with Into the Spotlight on Everfree Network. We'll catch you next time.